Day 2. I woke up with a click. When I opened my eyes to gather information, I couldn't move my head for some reason. As a result, I wasn't able to grasp a lot of information. Still, I was able to understand one fact, though it's regrettable, the story about reincarnating wasn't a dream, or a delusion which I had created while being drunk. With a little more effort, and with my limited vision, I could determine a few more things. It appears that I was in the middle of a cave. Signs of it being handmade weren't found, so the possibility of it being natural was high. The feeling of the rags I used as a blanket were the worst. They felt stiff, and they were clearly dirty. The soil on my back was uncomfortable, and a pebble was digging into my skin, so it hurt a little, though it didn't matter. More importantly, there were a lot of ugly children who had green skin and sharp ears. Although I was wearing cloth, they were asleep and stark naked. There were about 30 in visible range, with 20 of them being the size of a human baby. The others were the same size as a human child, adults I presume. Well, that was the conclusive evidence that I reincarnated though. Considering that if I move my hands, I can see baby skin identical to that of the surrounding goblins, and in each finger, a sharp black nail was clearly visible. If I wasn't reincarnated, what else could it be? Though I wonder if this in itself is solid proof. My arms were exactly like that of the baby goblin sleeping next to me. Apparently, the ESP ability I gained from strengthening surgery seemed to have decreased in rank due to the new body. I cried for a moment, seriously. The body that I have doesn't seem to move properly because I was a newborn. Today, like any other goblin child, I spent the day sleeping. I wasn't escaping from reality at all. Day 3. I'm determined to survive in my second life, yet after reincarnating, I decided to give up moving since it couldn't be helped. Through my previous job, I had learned that living dirty and having the capability to quickly change one's thinking was an indispensable skill. Apparently, the growth of a goblin is characteristically fast. Even though it's only the third day since birth, my body has been growing rapidly. While my body used to be that of a baby before I went to sleep, its figure currently now is that of an elementary student's. Although it's still weaker than before my reincarnation, compared to yesterday, my body's power had skyrocketed. I was able to stand up, and even run at moderate speeds, so I felt indescribably happy. I frolicked instinctively, though it was childish, the stress of being unable to move as I liked had accumulated. Well, this is only natural. When compared to the civilization built by humans, who grew up without worry of being attacked by a foreign enemy, goblins, since the moment of their birth, must deal with the fierce struggle for survival. The humans grew slower than the goblins who lived in the natural world, where the law of the jungle forced their offspring to grow faster. Since my body could move now, I spent my time today learning this body's limits. I did exercises with my body until I was comfortable with it, and in the end collapsed from exhaustion. Still, this bed, don't we have anything better? Day 4. After reincarnating into a goblin, I went hunting for the first time. Or rather, those who do not work, do not eat. Newborn goblins were restricted to eating chubby caterpillars for nourishment. No, I'm not saying I don't like them, they are unexpectedly delicious, but we didn't have an unlimited supply of them. Hunting was unavoidable since rationing was no longer available, according to the goblin manager. Only after the 4th day since birth does one need to hunt. It teaches one the strict laws of nature. As expected, it would be too hard to do alone. I made a buddy sacrificial pawn, named Gobukichi, by using some lies and flattery while we walked in the forest. The goblins in this world seem to be simply idiots. Well, at least that made it easy to trick them. Oh, that's right. Goblin breeding can be done between the same race, however the conception rate seems to be low. To overcome that, they kidnap women and violate them until they are pregnant. You see, yesterday I found a rusty sword near the back of the cave. While picking up the sword, I stumbled across a room with several women. Many of them were stripped to rags even though their levels were higher than those of the goblins. There was a beautiful child in an extremely cruel state. Her whole body was defiled by a cloudy liquid, and her vitality, which seemed to grow weaker with every breath, was ever more fleeting. She was surely on the verge of death, a severe incident to be aware of. It was easy to guess where they were kidnapped from. At my current strength, I know too well the extent of what I can do, so I can only pray as I clasp my hands with a Namu Amida Butsu. This was only a mere consolation though. Perhaps, someone there was my present mother, but that's too depressing to think about, so I'll leave it alone for now. Indeed, it was better for two to work together than to hunt alone, but it was regrettable that Gobukichi tried to eat the prey without my consent, so I hit him with a tree stick to teach him about hierarchies. Eventually, he rolled over, so I switched to dismantling the spoils. The result of our first glorious hunt was a light, brown rabbit that had a 20 centimeters long horn growing out of its forehead, so I decided to call it a horned rabbit. Though the horn was sharp, it was a bit small for a human to use, but because of that, it was the perfect size for a goblin. It didn't cut like a blade, so piercing and thrusting it like an estoc would be a more suitable way to use it. Gobiru obtained small animal horn. The moment I picked up the horn, an announcement resounded somewhere, but it was probably just my imagination. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, but my current name is apparently Gobiru. The Goblin Elder named me that when I opened my eyes for the first time. Even though it's not exactly to my tastes, I tolerated it since I don't want to use the name I had before. Basically, I gave up. Even though I acquired the rabbit's horn as a lethal weapon, it was still troublesome to peel the skin off of its body. It was even more difficult to ignore the stares of Gobukichi while he drooled, which made his face even more ugly than usual. Wanting some peace, I decided to divide the rabbit in half, and gave one to him. I tried my best to peel the skin off of mine, but it grew too troublesome, so I ate and munched the meat together with the skin. I was able to procure a weapon and eat fresh meat. This was indeed a significant first day. The meat was delicious, while the mysterious insects weren't bad, but they just couldn't beat real meat. Day 5. We went hunting for food today too. Gobukichi was forced to clearly understand our hierarchy, with who's above and below whom, after going through my instructions. The experience yesterday helped us obtain prey immediately today. Although it was just another horned rabbit, it was at least twice the size of the one before. It might have been even more dangerous though, because Gobukichi was only using a wooden stick, while I still had the horn from yesterday. Its performance in combat was better than I expected. While Gobukichi caught the rabbit's attention, I smashed its spinal cord and gouged out its heart from behind. Though a small portion of the horn was damaged due to the rough handling, the battle was still a success because of the spoils we had received. Just like the rabbit that was killed yesterday, I broke off its horn. I unintentionally called the weapon the most legendary horn, but the announcement which came after corrected me. Gobiru obtained small animal horn. I decided to ignore it since I don't understand it very well. While I was thinking that, I found Gobukichi staring at the game with hungry eyes. While munching the meat, crunching the bone, and slowly gulping it, I felt as though my entire body was brimming with life. This convinced me of a matter that I had thought of yesterday. It seems that even through reincarnation, I had retained the ESP ability, absorption. This means that I'm like in a new Game Plus mode since I inherited it, though I wasn't very happy about it in the start. By the way, from the time mankind was able to advance into space and even several centuries before that, the probability to be born with an ESP ability was 1 out of 1,000. Some even say that the psychic are an evolved version of the human race. Though some might say that ESP abilities are a non-successive kind of gene. There is no such thing as a psychic with a 100% chance of passing on their ESP capability to their child. The probability of inheriting abilities isn't absolute, so how they are developed is a mystery. ESP capability had become a natural part of everyday life. Even if somebody developed an ability through an unnatural way, like by coming into contact with aliens, because psychic powers were recognized as part of a person's individuality, nobody would look down on that person. The time when psychics were persecuted for their abilities was over. Though if a user was still uncomfortable with their power, devices that were capable of suppressing it could be bought in the market. My absorption ability was a major power, even rarer than the likes of psychometry, telekinesis, and teleportation, which were of the general class. It made it so, no matter how hard or poisonous something was, I would be able to eat it. My teeth could tear through the likes of iron and gold easily, while toxins would be restructured, rendered harmless and edible in my body. The characteristics of whatever I ate, whether it be an item or another living being, would be absorbed and assimilated into me so that I could use them as well. This was an ability that could only be obtained at a fixed probability. I'm not quite sure how it works though. Oh well, I just wanted to inform you about what my ability was. To question the principles of supernatural powers would be nonsense. By the way, just because I've eaten something that has an ability, doesn't guarantee that I'll absorb its powers. For example, if what I just ate was a living being, its freshness is an important factor as to whether I'll get an ability or not. After its death, I have 12 hours to eat it before the chance to absorb its abilities are gone. That said, there are certain parts that give abilities easier than others, such as the heart and the brain, where most of the power is concentrated. Physical strengthening, and an improved recovery rate, can be obtained in addition to the ability absorbed. Furthermore, if the being that I consumed was stronger than me, there was a certainty of simultaneously acquiring multiple abilities. Moreover, it's possible to strengthen an ability that's been acquired, by consuming the original ability owner multiple times. Although absorption isn't strong on its own, the more I eat, the stronger I become. Naturally, there is a limit though. Before I reincarnated, I strengthened myself by devouring creatures of mass destruction and evil-doing espers. Unfortunately, the abilities I had gotten from them seemed to have been reset. Since there were some useful powers there, the reset had been regrettable, but I was fortunate enough to keep the absorption ability, which more than made up for it. Thus, food, like the horned rabbit and the mysterious insects, should be eaten without hesitation. It was mortifying, however, to know that it was the only ability that I retained after my reincarnation. Since it's necessary to eat for survival, common sense and ethics could be easily discarded. The ability I obtained this time was called escape. When fleeing or running away, the probability of escaping and adapting to the environment increases. I wonder why the rabbit didn't try to escape when we confronted it today. Oh well. After that, 2 more horned rabbits were successfully captured and eaten. Going to sleep with a full belly was a pleasant feeling. It seems that the amount that Gobukichi is relying on me is rapidly increasing. It's probably because the law of the jungle rules this world that contributed to him recognizing me as the superior being.